Welcome everyone. We're gonna have a session today in which John is gonna cover some aspects of what you guys gonna expect for tomorrow. We're gonna have a Q&A section at the end, and if you have questions while John is doing the presentation, well, just please uh, use the chat, and I'll be monitoring them. So we'll shoot them at the end, so he can go through the slides as swiftly as possible. And any other question, comments, or suggestions you might have, we'll be happy to discuss them at the end in that section. So we're very looking forward to this track day tomorrow. As you know, this is the second track day that we're doing. We had a great time in Anglesey last month, and we think that tomorrow is going to be even better. We're playing local. We're going to have a great time. It seems that the weather is going to play ball. So as usual, the amount of members showing up for this track day is close to what we're expecting to, very similar to what we were expecting to. So we expect to have a safe session, to have a lot of enjoyment, to have a good drive session. Hopefully your driving skills will improve during the day, and the team of coaches will be there. We're going to be wearing high vis, so feel free to get in touch, feel free to ask questions, feel free to get as much help as you can from us. So Chris gonna be there, John of course gonna be there, Hugh's gonna be there, Stuart as well, Dave Whelan and Dave O'Brien and myself. So it's a fair amount of coaches, and we are there for you guys. We are there to guide you, to help you, and hopefully to improve your driving skills on track. So get in touch or just say hi, and looking forward to seeing you tomorrow morning. That's it for me, John.
Okay, thanks, Augusto. Thank you very much. So let's see where we are here. Good. Right. So our agenda for this evening, and we will try and get through this within the hour, is to have a look first at let me just, that's grand. Friday schedule. We'll talk a little bit about the PCI track days, the basics and the fundamentals. We will then do an introduction for the first timers, because after point 2 there on the slide, those that have been with us before are welcome to leave if they don't want to hear all about the line and all sorts of things all over again that I know most of you have seen several times around, and we also talk about on the day itself. So we're trying to keep it short and sweet, and then we'll have an introduction then for the first timers and give them some of our time, and then we'll have questions and answers. We can always have questions and answers at the end of the first half of the presentation as well. And I will leave it at that. The red message there should be heeded, please. Augusto they're always saying that we don't want cars crossing the track unnecessarily often, because it interrupts the flow for everybody else. And generally speaking, cars will cross the track to go and get fuel. So if you want fuel, go and get it at lunchtime. Please come with a full tank. And I'll say no more about that. But anyway, there we go. So the track day schedule, what's happening tomorrow? 8 o'clock registration. For those of you that have been before, usual place, same place as normal. For those of you that haven't, follow the crowd. It's in the paddock in Mondello, and not difficult to find. 9 o'clock safety briefing in the same place. So once you've found where registration is happening and you sign on and you do all your bits and pieces, you're in the right place for the safety briefing. The safety briefing tomorrow will consist of Mondello doing their piece. So I am not going to repeat that in this part of the presentation. Most of you that have been before will be relieved to hear that, because we normally do it. We're not suggesting it's any less important than it normally is. It is still very important, but the bottom line is we think you know enough about it at this stage that we don't have to take up your time this evening talking about it again. 9:45 to 10:15, slight change there because Mondello now wants to open the circuit just a little bit later, is our opportunity for sighting laps. And this time around, it is mandatory and it is for first-time attendees only. Now, sometimes we get every car in the paddock jumping on for the sighting laps, which makes a bit of a mockery of it because it means that with a long train of cars, you just don't get to take a line and so on. So this time around, we're making it first-time attendees only, and it is mandatory for those, and we will be talking about that again in the briefing in the morning, so everybody knows where they are, and everybody will have had an adequate chance to meet with their coaches and identify who they are. For those of us that haven't met personally before, we'll have the opportunity to do that during registration and the safety briefing in the morning. So 10:15, then the circuit will be open to all cars until lunch break. And at lunch break, from 1 until 2, there is the optional track walk. Now, that has always proven to be very useful, and I expect it will be useful again tomorrow. It always throws up a couple of interesting comments and questions. It is optional. We do encourage you to take it and to go, and we'll see how much of it we can do. Sometimes we don't do the whole circuit. Depending on the weather tomorrow and depending on what's happening and depending on how people feel, we'll decide what part of the circuit we're driving out to and what we're doing. So if you have a particular requirement, let us know and we'll take it from there, and we'll try and include that in our track walk. A new addition to the program this time around, the track will open again at 1400, but a new addition to the program this time around is an advanced driving class that Chris has been working on, and that will be delivered between 3:30 and 4 between myself and Chris and Gusto. And thanks to Chris for putting this together, and it comes from our experiences abroad and his experiences abroad and our experiences just generally driving, and it is optional in terms of attendance, and it is the sort of program that I will ask Chris to maybe say a few words about it if he would like. I don't know if he's unmuted or not, but I presume he is, given that he's running the show here at the moment. Chris, would you like to talk a little bit about what exactly we're going to do tomorrow?
Just a couple of sentences. It's self-selection. So if you view yourself to be a reasonably advanced driver, you know your way around Mondello, you've been on some other tracks perhaps, and you'd like to talk with some other people who also been in the same boat, we'll be meeting in the Grand Prix suite, the classroom there. And we have a regular presentation on a couple topics that I think will be of interest to everyone. But before that, we'll also explore kind of what people's experience has been during the day, any questions that have come up. And so it's an opportunity to talk about some of the more advanced aspects of car handling and getting yourself around a racetrack. The key prepared presentation is on finding your breaking point, which is something that is important if you're going to find your way around the track effectively.
Very good. Thanks, Chris. So hopefully that will appeal to some, and it is an interaction, an interactive, I should say, type session that Chris wants to have, I know. So it's plenty of opportunity for you to share your own experiences and challenges and see what other people see and feel, and see what we might see and feel about what's happening. So 17:30 track closes. That is the program for tomorrow. So let's look at some track day fundamentals. These are reminders for most of you, and for those of you that are new, it's something you'll be seeing for the first time. So the most important message in this page is the middle part of those three there. The interaction between the acceleration, braking, and cornering is what driving your car quickly is all about. And the interaction between those three is how you get the best out of your car. And when you don't understand that, or you abuse it, that's what we call stupidity, because you cross that thin line between bravery and stupidity. So I hope the point is well made, and I know you can read the slides there yourselves. I don't intend to be the person who just reads out all the text that's on every slide. So we'll have lots of fun finding out tomorrow just how brave we are and sometimes just how stupid we can be. But the object of the exercise obviously is not to be stupid and to be brave and intelligent about what you're doing. So, overtaking, this is really important, and we don't make any apologies for repeating this in every presentation that we give. This is what keeps us all safe. This is what keeps the cars in good condition, no bent panels and no messing around. This is our what we call and what we refer to as our contract when we go on track as part of a PCI track day, and it's what makes PCI track days different to other track days. You overtake on straights only. There is an indication required before each overtake, and the overtaken driver, the driver who is being passed out, in other words, controls the overtake by giving an indication to allow the faster car behind to pass.
So that's a little trapulate for us, right, John? The slide says overtaking car, and you just said overtaken car. So which is it?
The overtaken car driver controls the overtake. Right? The person who is being overtaken controls the pass out.
So that's the car in front. Has
the car in front
about whether it's being passed or not.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
You give an indication to allow the pass. The slide is actually incorrect here. The overtaking car, the faster car, stays to the left. I'm sorry about that mistake here. It is a distinct indication, and it is one per overtake. So if you are a faster car and you are approaching two cars, how many indicators do you expect to see before you can overtake both cars? The answer is 2. The first car you're going to take to has to overtake to say, I see you. Yes, please overtake me. The second car also has to see you, put on the indicator, and you overtake the second one. And we do expect people to adhere to that and to recognize that all the time, because it's safety first and safety always is what we say in this space, and it's really, really important.
May I jump in with one addition, John?
Do.
If the car that is in a position to pass or overtake is very quick, it may come up, not directly behind the slower car, and therefore may not be visible to the slower driver, who may well be a novice and may not be checking mirrors as effectively as one would hope. So it helps sometimes if you're not getting an indication to move yourself directly behind the car you want to overtake. Presumably you've got the power to motor around, and the overtaken car, the passed car, will slow if need be to get you around before the turn comes up. But being visible to the other driver is a good way to get a pass signal.
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on in what you're saying. It's a good point. I know we have changed the slides around a bit, and I've paid the penalty for that and just the mistake on the slide here again, so my apologies again for that. But Chris's point is very well made. Yes, you do need the driver to put on the indicator to say, yes, I see you, you can overtake. But you've got to make sure that you're giving that driver every opportunity to see you. So make yourself big in the mirrors without being obviously silly and driving too close. So watch out for that, particularly in the event that it is, as Chris said, maybe one of our colleagues who's on track that hasn't been on track before. Just on that point, Augusto, and I should have asked you this before we started, my apologies. Do we have any of those little yellow badges again for tomorrow with the black cross in them? We do. Okay.
Yes, we do.
So you will know now from the answer to the question that anybody who is on their first event and so on, or has not got a lot of track time under their belt, will have a yellow square with a black cross on it on the back of their car. So for the faster cars, we will say to you now, when you see that, make sure that you know and allow for that in what you are doing and how you're behaving on circuit. So we'd ask you to bear that in mind. Thank you very much. So check your mirrors, indicate and let others pass. So all the time, check your mirrors. It's no different to driving a car anywhere else, but obviously in Mondello, it's a little bit faster, but at least we're all going in one direction and you don't have to worry about what's coming against you, or well, at least you shouldn't have to worry about what's coming against you. So check the mirrors, indicate and let others pass when you can do so. So lift off slightly when allowing a car to overtake you, depending on the circumstances. And again, for those of you that are new to this, we'll talk about this more in the second half of this presentation. So be patient, and as I said a minute ago, don't follow too closely, but do make sure that the driver that you want to overtake can see you if you're the faster, and watch your closing speed if you're the faster driver. Pay attention to the flags and acknowledge the flaggers when you see them. So we always say that the flag marshals are your friends. They can see things on the circuit that you can't, and they message you by way of the flags. And we are not in this part of the presentation going to talk about the flags, as I said at the start. Mondello will do that again tomorrow in the way that they normally do. And when you are in car with the coach overrules everything. So if the coach really wants you to stop or change the line or becomes uncomfortable or whatever the case may be, regardless of what you hear us talking about in theory here on the internet on our Zoom call, when you're on track, it's different, and it can be very different. And in car, if the coach is getting uncomfortable, they will let you know. And if we want you to slow down or stop or pull in or whatever it is, or change what you're doing, we will ask you to do so, and we would ask you to respect that and to work with us in that regard. So we still ask you to brake in a straight line, don't lift off the throttle in the turn, and avoid coasting. We've often talked here about being smooth with inputs. That hasn't changed. And as you all know, there are no lap times recorded in this. Some of you record your own lap times and what you're doing for your own purposes. That's entirely your business. PCI has nothing to do with that. We're not in the business of setting one car against another or setting any sort of form of a competition here. And we would ask everybody to respect everybody else on the track. That has been the way in all of the track programs that we've had. And to date, mercifully, we have not had any issues because we have a system that works. And as I said at the start, we don't apologize for reminding people exactly what that is and keeping it all on track. So look ahead, be aware, there's the day of the circuit. Most of you know it very well. We'll be talking about that in some more detail later on. Check your flag posts and have situational awareness is what I've written there for tracking in incidents that might be unfolding, particularly if you see a yellow flag or something going on and you notice something that might be happening ahead of you. The old adage of look where you want to drive is absolutely true, because the car and your hands will follow your eyes. It absolutely works. Always bear that in mind, and we as coaches always look and see how people are driving and try and remind them about that. We say here to always adjust your vision through the corner. Very important. You've got to look at where you're going into the corner, where the corner is and where you're coming out of it, and make sure that you know when you can accelerate and how you want to drive through the corner. And you do that by looking ahead. You don't want to be looking just 2 or 3 car lengths ahead of you on the road, particularly at speed. It all makes common sense, but sometimes common sense is, well, we all know about that. So your braking point, your turn in, your apex, your exit point, the next corner, that's where you need to be looking. You need to be looking ahead, and that's the point that we're making there in that slide, is asking you to make sure that you know where you're going and how you're getting there, and planning your way around the circuit and driving that line to make sure that it is where you want to be with the car set up where you want it to be on the road, so you can drive properly through the corner. Not going to talk about all of these individual points. They may or they may not be appropriate to you, particularly on the right-hand side. I don't know what driving aids people have in each of their cars, but the bottom line is there are some, like lane assist and so on, that you want to turn off for obvious reasons. But the rest of them are down to you to make a decision on. I will leave it to everybody to read through those and make their own decision as to what's good for them. On the left-hand side, we're talking about being smooth again, always about being smooth and minding the car and how to drive the car. And I'm not going to talk about heel and toe and trail braking, because they're things that if you know what they are and you know how to do them, you'll do them. And if you don't try to learn how to do it during a track day. That's something you need to learn on a street, the heel and toe on a street car first before you try that for a first time at Mondello. We don't want anybody running out of road. That is all I have to say for those that are experienced and who have been with us before and who have enjoyed many safe track days with us. And our aim is to make sure that we run another one of those tomorrow and everybody goes home safe and well with cars that are also safe and well. If there are any questions from those who are experienced at this point in time, I will take them. Otherwise, I will move on and we will go now to the section for the people who are joining us for the first time tomorrow, and we'll spend a bit of time with them. So I'll leave it to Augusto and Chris to tell me how we stand with questions and what's happening. Augusto? Chris?
Well, Augusto was following the chat, so he probably can unmute himself and tell us if what things in the chat. I saw one item is whether headlights should be on or not. I guess making yourself more visible to a driver that's not giving you an indication. So, John, you want to answer that one?
I say generally not, to be honest. We want people to see us for sure. It's a bright day. It's not getting dark, and we don't want to be seen to be aggressive either. So I would think generally headlights are not on, would be my answer to that question. And flashing headlights behind people and being frustrated is not something that we would like to see on track at all. I will tell you that now for sure. Anything else there?
Yeah, I think Augusto says that the host is not allowing people to unmute, but they should be able to now.
Yeah, we can now. We couldn't either. I couldn't before. So
sorry,
yeah.
Augusto.
No worries.
That was completely intentional, Augusto.
Yeah, pretty sure it was. Yeah, I was dying to answer the questions. Yeah. So, yeah.
Augusto,
was there anything else in the chat? I don't think so. No, Dave Whalen had a question regarding overtaking on the straights. That there's a straight between turn 1, 2, and turn 3.
Okay, that's a good point, Dave, and well made. And it's something we used to that's what happens when I change slides. We used to say, well, what is a straight? Mondello is a short circuit, and it's not blessed with a whole lot of straights. So when I say straight, we are talking about you overtake on straight pieces of the track, not the main straight only, okay? So between corners there are straights. Now, depending on what you're driving and at what pace you are going, what seems like a straight to some cars and may well just be a little bit of a curve between two other bends for the likes of...
John, do you want to pull up the track map as you talk about this?
Okay.
I think that's at the bottom of your slide deck.
There we go. Okay, so we can see there that there are several short straights. Typically, if you look at it coming out of turn 3 to 4, looks like it's a big bend. When you drive it, if you're not familiar with the circuit, it is actually straight for a while. There is the ability to pass there. Similarly, 4 to 5 before the kink. And on the way out of 5 all the way down to 6, there is that ability there. After 6, that is short there. But coming out of 7B, heading for 8, again, another piece of straight. So to Dave's point, I mean, the main straight is obvious there. It's marked on the bottom of the circle with the checkered flag. And coming out of turn 2 down to 3 before the turn right is obviously another one. So you can see on that there are plenty of areas that we call straight. It's not just the main straight. So
And,
thank you,
and
Dave, for that.
the point that David was making is that 1 to 2 certainly looks straight, but it's short enough that it's not really a sufficient straight for an overtake.
It's an excellent example of what I was just talking about. He's absolutely right. When you come out of 1, you are on the far side of the circuit, entering, exiting, and you want to be over on the inside then to turn left through turn 2. And that is literally, for some cars, that is like one big curve coming out of 1 to stay over, to get over onto the right-hand side, to set yourself up for the left hand of turn 2. So he is absolutely right. I would not expect to see anybody overtaking there. I would be really surprised if it was overtaking at that point in time. Something would have to be wrong. A car is moving very slowly or something. And that is also a point, because you can see there, and I didn't mention this, on turn 2, that there is the back entry to the paddock there. Now, you will see that tomorrow at the circuit. Most of you will know it, except for our first timers. But be aware that if you are coming out of 1 and you're going for it, and somebody is slowing down because they're coming off at 2, they are going to stay right, and they may well be just out of your way, and you may well pass on the inside through turn 2, but they will be out of your way and effectively off the circuit. In other words, they'll be on the grey bit by the time you're passing through 2. That is the only time I would expect to see 2 cars passing close to each other in that area of the track, nowhere else.
That cutout is marked on the map. I hope you can see it in yellow. This is turn 2 cutout at Mondello Park. It's that yellow right off of where the 2 is marked. There's a gate there that they have an opening in the fence that takes you right into the paddock. And as John said, if a car is going that way, one would expect it to have an indication to the right, and it is creeping along the right side at a very reduced speed, because that's not a place to go fast. So that would be an implied pass for somebody coming up out of 1 at normal speed. But you'll have to compromise your speed, because you won't necessarily be able to get all the way right to set yourself up for turn 2, because there'll be a car there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I will add, sorry, John, I will add a couple of things. The question is very good. We need to remember the contract. We need to remember that whether we are thinking that there is a straight or not, the guy in front has to be indicating that it's going to stay to the right. It is, I think, for the purpose of our track day, 1 and 2 is just 1 corner. That's the way it is. It's too short. And the awareness that the person that has to be in front of you to let you pass in that bit of stretch is way too short. So I would say definitely not. It's not a straight there, unless the car in front has a breakdown and it's indicating that it's going to stay on the right in that place or coming in. That's a different story. But that's not definitely not a passing zone. And for the people who are coming for the first time, it's just about being aware. It's just about looking at you complete 1 corner, you try to get the apex, you're coming out of the corner, you're tracking out, you're looking at your mirror after a corner. And I think is something to keep in mind. Every time you finish a corner, just look at your mirrors to see if you have somebody behind you. Usually after a corner, you will have a bit of stretch. So if you have somebody behind you, you just let them go and carry on. That's it.
Okay,
thanks, Augusto. I agree with all that.
There's also a question. There's a question about towing eye, front, back, or and I think if you're being towed, you'd like to be towed going forward, typically. So in the front, if you've got a place for a tow eye in both places.
Yeah.
And there's a question: is there a facility for later arrivals? Because there's no tunnel or bridge at this track to get to the infield, they have to shut the track down for anyone to get in or out. So we try and minimize that, as has been said. But the track will accumulate cars looking to get in or out, and will periodically, throw a checker flag to get everybody off the track, and then let people pass back and forth. But there's no set time for that. It's just based on demand.
Yeah, it's ad hoc. Yeah. Can I make a point on that very same point that you were talking about there, Chris? And it's this. I have to say that as a little organizing group that we are, and that we work together to put this on, you would be amazed at the number of people who do sometimes arrive late. And they are the very people that will be involved in not doing what we ask around passing and indications and straights and so on and so forth. Therefore, if you do arrive late, please expect that we will want to talk to you and we will want to know that you are aware of what we are doing. And Augusto, I know, has some thoughts on that in terms of how we're going to do this. And we do that not because we want to, because we would much prefer to be on track with people ourselves as well. We do it because we have to, because it's the right thing to do. So we would ask for everybody's cooperation. That said, we understand, the world we live in, we get delayed, things happen. Send us a text, tell us, give us a call, let us know. Please just try and reach out and let us know where you're at. We understand people can run into trouble. Come to us, see us. Let's straighten it out. Let's make sure we all know that we're all on the same page. And we don't come in a rush, late, jump into the car, and off we go. And everything we're talking about tonight goes straight out of the mind, and we end up doing something silly. That's not where we want to be. So I would ask people to please bear that in mind in terms of what we're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add a couple of things there. There is a reason to have the registration at the beginning and to have the safety briefing given by Mondello at the beginning as well, plus our slides, and the reason is safety first. So yeah, we don't let's say, we're not gonna be very happy about it, but we will accommodate. We are going to make sure that whoever reaches to the track will have some kind of briefing. So if you arrive late, one of us will sit down with you and talk to you about what to expect and how things will pan out. And we are going to have a quiz tomorrow because our understanding was that in a couple of track days before, people were sitting down the briefing, but their minds were not in the briefing. So that means that the body was there, but the mind was probably in Portugal or in Spain or with the missus or whatever. So what we're going to do tomorrow is, whether you arrive late or not, we're going to make sure that you understood what we're saying, which is the same as we're saying today, and making some points that Mondello is going to make, and then we're gonna find out whether you're paying attention or not. It's not going to be it's not rocket science. It's just 5 basic questions, false true, and that's it. And once we're happy with that, you will get your band and off you go. So that's what we're gonna do. So if you arrive late, as John's saying, please let us know in advance, so we'll be prepared and we know how many people are arriving late. Some of you have reached out already, which I really appreciate that. So if something happens tomorrow morning and you have a delay, just please get in touch, and so in that way we will have we will know what to expect and work towards that.
Thanks, Gusto. If there's no other questions, I am conscious of time. I promised we get this done within the hour, and we're 35 minutes in. So I do want to move on to the first timers and the few extra talking points we have for them. If there's no other questions.
Sorry, did we cover the towing eye already?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Chris said front.
Yeah, cool.
Your own choice, but most of us certainly goes in the front. Yeah. Okay, is that it? Okay, if that's it, thank you to everybody. Hey, the people who are joining us for the first time, please stay on the call. Those that are not joining us for the first time, it may only be your second or third, or may be your 35th. I don't know. You are welcome to leave if you want to, and if you want to stay, you're equally welcome to stay. So thanks very much indeed. I'll move down to this. Yes, so that's grand. Thanks very much to those of you who are leaving now, and we will see you tomorrow morning in Mondello, bright and early, and bright being hopefully what the weather's doing for us. So thank you. Okay, so our introduction for our first timers, welcome. So people starting to drop off. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so track day fundamentals. Let me talk to you about all sorts of things, and this is your chance now to pick up on some of the things we've been talking about, and we'll have some of it in more detail here, and we'll have some of it that may be just entirely news to you. So we have what we have called a LACE program. It's something that we have developed over time, and it stands for the line, the awareness, consistency, and etiquette. And what do we mean by that? The line is what we talk about when we learn what the correct driving line is around the circuit. In other words, where do you brake? Where do you turn in? How far into the corner do you go? Where the apex of the corner is, and we'll show you this in diagram form in a minute. And then where you exit the corner as well. So that's the line. Your awareness, always be aware of what's happening around you. And you've heard me speak about that to some of our more experienced drivers a few minutes ago. Whether you're new, whether you're experienced, or whether you're at it for years, awareness is key. You have to be aware of what's around you. And consistency is what you're aiming at. You know, how do you drive in the car through the day, through the lines? How do you interact with the car, and how do you be consistent? If you're driving laps consistently, all great racing drivers can drive laps consistently, and they're racing. And it's the secret of success is consistency, is doing the same thing, it's braking at the same time, turning in, getting the most out of the car at any given time, straight, bend, or otherwise. So the consistency is what you're looking for, and you'll be surprised how quickly some of that consistency will come to you. And the etiquette is know how to be a safe PCI track star. The etiquette is about knowing all about what we've just spoken about and what we're going to talk to you a bit more about now in the next couple of slides, is the etiquette about how do you drive, how do you behave on track, how do you drive your car on track, etc. So first of all, let's look at our paddock procedures. The safety briefing, we've already mentioned, it's happening in the morning at 9 o'clock. And it'll give you an opportunity, if you haven't already done so at other club events, to meet your coach, introduce yourself, and let me talk to you now about any guests that you might be bringing. Guests are your responsibility, and we do ask you to bring your guests to the briefing, particularly so that they know what's happening about safety, because Mondello will talk about how to behave in the pit lane. It is an active hot pit lane. We do go slowly in the pit lane. It is not a Formula One pit lane where they are reduced to, I think, 80k. I can't remember now off the top of my head, but it is a pit lane. It is an active pit lane. We don't wheel spin and zoom out of the pit lane. We go along up the pit lane nice and slowly, nice and safe. We've picked people crossing all the time from the garage side across the pit lane to the barrier and so on. So it's all about that. And in terms of traffic flow, we already mentioned that cutout at line 2 at turn 2. The yellow line is not on the diagram that's on the screen now in front of you, but it was on the diagram earlier on. And you will see it tomorrow with Mondello, and you will see it with us with the sighting laps, because we will bring you in that way at the end of one of the sighting laps. I think is probably what the plan will be, but one way or the other, we will show it to you and you will know where it is. So you'll be aware of that. The ideal line through a corner. Now there's a lovely 90-degree corner. And there's what we're talking about when we talk about where your turn in point is, where your apex is on the corner, and where your exit point is. If we look at how that's driven, there's a lovely green line, and that's how you would drive that. So you would do all your braking first in a straight line before you get to your turn-in point. You turn in through the corner, you understand where your apex is, and you know where you're heading for your exit point. Now, this will be a strange piece of tarmac to you. You won't know it if you've not driven it before. And to help you, and Augusto will correct me if I'm wrong, the cones will be out tomorrow in Mondello. So the turn-in point, the apex and the exit point will be marked with cones to help you through the experience that you're going to have tomorrow, so you know where you're going. So you're going to be going in the right direction, and you're going to be turning in at the right place, taking your apex and your exit point.
Sorry, John, just to
Yep.
Bring a little bit of information here. What we're going to mark is the apex only.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that, folks. I'll just revise what I just said. The apex will be there to give you an idea as to where you need to apex on the corner, okay? The turning in piece, remember what I said about looking ahead of you? When you're braking in a straight line, you will pick up markers on the track and positioning elements to help you, and we will talk to you about some of those things that don't move. Because there's no point in obviously in trying to refer to a spot to turn in or to brake when it moves, but things that don't move, lines where two different types of tarmac meet, that sort of stuff. There are all sorts of points in the track. We will bring you through those as coaches as we're talking to you tomorrow. And when you look through the corner, you will see your apex and you will see your exit point, and you will be able to figure that out from there. So we're only having apex out tomorrow. So that's that. Let's have a look and see what happens if you apex too early. All right. Here's what happens if you apex too early. We turn in sooner. The green apex is gone, or the green turn in is gone. There's where we're apexing too early, you can see. And if you look at that and you think about driving the car, where are you going to end up? You're going to end up exiting the circuit. Now, so obviously what you've got to do is slow down, and you won't be able to, you'll have to steer the car more to keep it on the track, and you will be adding in the throttle an awful lot later. So your options are either drive off the track, which obviously you're not going to do, or add your throttle later, i.e. you're going slower through the corner and you're missing a whole lot of time. But all of this will manifest itself very quickly when we sit in the car with you and when you follow the lines that we will drive in the familiarization laps early tomorrow. And when we're driving the familiarization laps, the trick is to keep 2 or 3 car lengths behind. We won't be doing them at mad speed. Just keep 2 or 3 car lengths distance between us for safety to make sure you can brake and all the rest. And we won't be braking heavy in front of you either. And we will show you where the turn in is, and we'll show you where we start braking and give you plenty of time to follow along. Don't let big gaps open up between the car you are following on the sighting laps, because if you do that, if there's 3 or 4 cars in a line and the first one knows where it's going, by the time the third or the fourth car gets to it, they'll be following some all different line altogether. So keep close enough, but obviously not too close for safety reasons and so on. But do follow the line on the sighting laps tomorrow and get yourself a way around and understand where the tarmac is going, and you will then very quickly pick up what's happening. So yeah, anyway, that's early apex. And if you do that, if you do the early apex, as I said, you run out of road very quickly. And that's just what's reflected there in the slide as it has changed. There are all types of corners. I'm not going to talk about each of these, okay? But the bottom line is every single one of them has a turn-in point, has an apex, and has an exit point. And once you see that and you start to apply that, you apply the same rule and the same thinking to every single corner, and you work your way around, and it'll all make more sense when we start doing it tomorrow. Communication with coaches, really important. Obviously, there are a variety of ways that coaches can interact with people when they're in the car, and depending on the type of car you're driving, some can be noisier than others. So in my case, particularly when I'm with people, I find it very hard to hear people when my helmet is on, because I don't have the best hearing in the world anyway. So oral is how we normally do it. Some of us have communicators. I have just acquired one myself, and I'll be trying it for the first time tomorrow. So it's a little electronic piece. It's a motorcycle device, and it gives you an earpiece and a mouthpiece and a microphone, and you should be able to hear me, and I should be able to hear you if you're working with me tomorrow. And some of the coaches have those, and they're handy. I don't know how effective this is going to be, but sure, we'll give it a try. Hand signals are what is most important. And that touch and steering assistance is something that is only very, very rarely used. The hand signals are what are used more often than anything else. And your coach will go through that with you in the car before you start off. Some of us have different ways of using hand signals to indicate what we want people to do. There is no handbook that says you must do it this particular way. So we will talk to you as coaches, and we will show you exactly what it is we do and how we communicate, and we will figure out with you exactly how best to do that. So
and of course, if you're a coach, if you're riding with somebody as a coach, and they don't tell you that, ask them, what are you going to do to indicate that I should slow down? What if I should speed up? What if I should turn more left or right? Just what are you going to do to make that clear?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Good point. Sometimes as we move quickly through the day, because we have several people that we are assisting, it can be that some of this gets lost, particularly if we're in a hurry from one to the other. So if you're unsure of anything, or you have a question, no such thing as a stupid question. We'd much prefer you ask the question, and then we don't have any difficulties out on circuit. We're trying to keep it all safety first, safety always, as I said before. So all the time, ask a question. There is no such thing as a silly question, particularly in your first couple of days on track.
There's also a question, John, from I think probably your Apex slide, asking where do you apply the throttle? Are you coming into the turn-in point? Maybe you want to just walk through where you're braking, where you're getting off the brakes and starting to accelerate.
Okay, I'm trying to remember, do I cover that again now further down? I may do. I'll tell you what, I think I do, and if I do, fine, and if I don't, let's come back to that at the end. Well, will you remind me about that one, Chris? Thank you.
Sure.
Lovely. So, flags. Mondello will talk to you about this tomorrow. I don't intend to spend much time on it. They will tell you what they are doing with flags. The most important thing to remember from this slide is the marshals are your friends. I said it earlier on. You will understand where they are, and you will see them when you start to drive around the circuits on your familiarization lap. And to make sure that you can see them on the familiarization laps, they will generally wave the flag or hold it out steady, the yellow flag, so you know where they are. And when you know where they are, say hello to them, give them a little wave, give them a thumbs up, whatever it happens to be. Because if you go off and it's on the blind side of a corner somewhere, you're looking for somebody who's going to help you get back on the circuit without having somebody coming down the road at 90 miles an hour when you're straight across the circuit trying to gather speed, wheels spinning off the grass or something. So be aware that your marshals are your friends. And when you go off, look to them, because they will tell you to stop or to come back on, or it's safe to do so. And they will also be telling people that are coming that there's an issue by putting out the flag. So it's really, really important. So when you see the flag, obviously be prepared to slow down, not to stop, but to slow down, no passing, be prepared to drive offline and all the rest. Mondello, as I said, will talk to you more about that tomorrow, and you need to listen to what they say, because the marshals are theirs. I am not going to say on Mondello's behalf what it is they're going to try and message to you. I know what International Motorsport says about a wave yellow and a steady yellow flag. I'll let Mondello point out to you what they're going to do tomorrow around yellow flags. The checkered flag is the obvious one. If I really have to explain to you what that's about, you're on the wrong phone call.
Sorry, John, just a quick one with the marshals. It's always a good courtesy to let know the marshal that you are acknowledging the flag that it has been waving at you. So whichever flag is the marshal is showing to you, just point at the guy. So in that way, he knows that you saw the flag that has been waved and you got the message. Is the only two-way communication that you can have with them. It sounds obvious, but sometimes we forget to do that. So just keep that in mind, that the guy is sending you a message, and the only way that you can tell them that you got that message is to point back to him or give him a thumbs up, or a smile is not going to work because your helmet is going to be on. So just use your hands.
Yeah, good point, Augusto. Thank you. The black flag, if it's pointed at you, something is wrong with you or your car and you need to proceed to the pits and see the marshal there. And if the red flag is shown now, I mean, any of you that watch Grand Prix racing, I'm sure you know what the red flag is about, particularly after last weekend. But look, if the red flag is shown, it's not about piling on the brakes and coming to a halt because somebody's going to run into behind you. It's about slowing down, no passing, and proceed to the pits using turn 2, as I alluded to earlier on. And we will make sure that you know where that cutout at turn 2 is, so you don't have to go all the way around. And the idea behind that, by the way, it seems that it deprives you of the opportunity for a cool down lap. And why shouldn't I have a cooling down lap? It's because if there is an incident, a serious incident on track, Mondello may be trying to get their vehicles to an incident to help one of your colleagues who has got into trouble. Therefore, we need to clear the track as soon as we possibly can, and that's why we proceed back to the pits through turn 2. So, just in case you're wondering, what's the reason for that? There it is, and there's the point that Augusto made just a minute ago. You know, what's the best way to learn where the marshal stands are? And I said it. They'll wave a yellow or they'll hold a yellow for the first couple of laps on the sighting laps, so you know where they are. But do wave or give them the thumbs up, particularly, as Augusto said, when they wave the flag and they are giving you some information. Just acknowledge that you've seen it and let them know that we appreciate the fact that they're there and they're standing out in all weathers for us. Hopefully it'll be dry weather, but there you go. Driving position. Look, we all have our own way that we like to drive the car. When you're at the circuit, it is different. I'm not going to go through every single one of those points there. If it's your first time on circuit, your coach will be happy enough in the morning to go through with you where you need to be and how you need to be sitting. There are some very good tips there. If you want to take a photograph of this slide, I'll leave it on the screen for a minute so you know and you can have a look at it. Maybe not this evening because it's gone a bit late, but maybe in the morning when you get to Mondello, take 2 or 3 minutes. You know, get yourself into the seat, press yourself well back, get your steering wheel set up, and so on. Make sure your hands are where they need to be, and your mirrors are adjusted, etc. So if you're not sure, ask us. But it's always worthwhile making sure that you are where you need to be. Don't be too far back and don't be too close to the wheel. So that's all I would say on that score. Skid and spin control. Now, hopefully this doesn't happen, but you heard me talking earlier on about smooth inputs around steering and throttle and braking. It's repeated there 3 times for a reason. It's really, really, really important. So, you know, if you're smooth with the car, there is much less chance of you doing something that means you're going to spin. Awareness we spoke about, there it is again. And your marshal's indicating what trouble ahead is, there it is again. So how to avoid spins, the smoothness and the awareness of what's coming down the track ahead of you are all important. You don't want to come around a bend into turn 3 doing 90 plus mile an hour and find a car across the road and realize, I missed a yellow flag somewhere. It's not really where you want to be, and you don't want to be sitting in the other car either. So just be aware of what's around you and be smooth with all of your inputs and your steering and your throttle and everything else. And if you do spin, what do you do? The 2 feet in is what I like, and I think that's something that certainly I know Chris talks quite a bit about, and it's brake and clutch to press. So you're on the brake, make sure you have the clutch in, as long as you have one, of course. It's not a PDK or something you're driving. And make sure that you have your brake in, and you have your steering wheel rigid, and you will come to a halt, hopefully without damaging yourself or the car, and wait for the marshal to give you your signal. Find your marshal, and when it happens, the important thing is go into the pits and talk it over with us. Find one of us and talk it over. I'm after spinning. I was out at turn X. I came around the corner. Everything seemed to be normal, and it snapped away from me, or I was too fast out, or I was too fast in, and I didn't make the corner, and I went off, and I just need to have a look at the car now and make sure it's all right. etc., etc. Whatever it happens to be, just come into the pits, talk it over, understand what you've done that has caused it to happen. Because it could be there's an issue with the car and you're not aware of that. And we do want to make sure that this doesn't happen. And this can happen not just because of the way you're driving the car, it can happen because of mechanical failure. So know and feel your car and be aware of the changes that take place during a run session. So know your limits is the message here, and know what's happening and be aware of what's happening. And the bottom, like the piece in bold, when in doubt, pit in and check it out. Really important, particularly as you go to your first couple of track days. Now, I do see that there's numbers increasing in the chat bar. Chris and Augusto, is there anything I need to stop and cover at this stage, or will I keep going?
I think you can keep going as long as you come back to the apex and throttle point.
That's fine. Okay, fine. Right. That was nearly it. So I didn't. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go back up to that one now. No. Okay. So what was the question, and where do we need to stop or start? Maybe somebody wants to unmute themselves and talk to us.
I think the question was, as you're going through this, we know you're going into turn in, relatively straight, and you're braking to set yourself up for the turn.
Yeah.
Where do you shift from braking to throttle? Is, I think, the question.
Okay. Honestly, I find, Chris, I don't know about you and Augusto, but I find that a very difficult question to answer because it depends on how you drive your car. Our message is, do your braking in a straight line to a point where you turn in. That means that you start accelerating again when you come off the brakes. That does not mean you're fully accelerating. That means you're driving through the car, and that comes back to something that we mentioned briefly about not coasting, about having control of the car and driving the car through the corners. So it's not a case of braking and then leaving the engine revs at whatever they are because due to your speed and turning into the corner and then starting to try and pick it up. When you come off the brakes, you should then be at a certain rev range, and you can hold that rev range through the corner and drive through the corner, hitting your apex and drive out the other side and start accelerating. When you start seriously accelerating is when you can see that the car is steady. When you feel that the car is steady on the track and you feel that you are, that there's enough grip there. And it's no different to going to a set of traffic lights in the city and turning through the set of traffic lights. When do you start acceleration after you turn right at a set of traffic lights? Is it when you come to the junction and you start to accelerate through the junction, or and then you just accelerate a bit harder when it starts to when you start to straighten up and you can see your way out? You will find all this out with your coach. Go ahead, Chris.
I would say the same thing in a slightly different way. You're going to, when you start braking the turn, you want to get onto the brakes, not abruptly, but rapidly as the car is happy. So you're not locking up. If you have ABS, you're not going to lock up, but you don't want to get into ABS. You want to get on rapidly, put some weight on the nose. So as there's more weight on the nose, weight shifts to the front, you can brake harder. So you want to brake hard. And then as you're coming to your turning point, you want to be easing off the brakes smoothly and then transitioning again smoothly to the throttle. So throttle is, maintenance at that point, as John says, maintaining your speed. You don't want to slow, but you want to shift the weight back to the rear tires, which will plant the car going through the turn. So you want some throttle to accomplish that weight shift, and then you want to accelerate smoothly through the turn, through the apex, and through track out, so that at track out, you're really at your maximum acceleration depending on what's coming up next. I mean, if there's another turn straight away, you're not going to get to full throttle. But if it's this ideal line turn coming from one straight to another straight, you're at full throttle at track out. Now that's a dance that involves downshifting, and if you've got PDK, that's one thing. If you've got a manual and you're downshifting, multiple gears, it's a dance that requires practice.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say to that is when you are finished braking, as Chris said, and you're starting what he called very aptly there, your maintenance through the first part of the corner until you can see that straightness where you can begin to accelerate again. It helps if you keep that speed and that rev constant at that point in time. There is no point in giving a little bit of acceleration and coming off and a little bit of acceleration and coming off. You want to keep that nice and smooth, especially we were talking about smooth and so on. Because when you start on and off the throttle like that, because you think, oh, well, maybe I'll slow too much, I'll speed up a bit, oh, I'll just come off the throttle a little bit. All you're doing is unsettling the car, nothing more. And Chris talked about the weight transfer there, and it's really important because if you're on and off the throttle like that, you are transferring the weight from the front to the rear of the car and so on, and it's not where you want to be. So a bit of maintenance is a really good word through there in terms of revs to keep and maintain a speed until you see your way out. And if you think, by the way, that you can see that after a couple of laps and you're working with us and you've had some sighting lines and you're working with us for coaches for a few laps, wait until you go out on the track walk at lunchtime and you look at this when you're standing on the tarmac and you look at the same turn and you think to yourself, oh yeah, I could actually be accelerating from way back here. It provides you with a totally different understanding and a totally different view of the corner when you go out and you stand on the tarmac and you look at it having driven it for a while. And I would strongly urge you to take advantage of that opportunity and join us in that tomorrow. I see 11 now in the chat, so I know there were 7 or 8 from the first session. Is there anything else in there, guys, that we need to be talking about? Because I am conscious that we're at 9 o'clock and I did say we'd be an hour. I am not saying I am limited on time. I am not. We are here for you this evening for as long as you need us. And maybe
I don't think we've missed anything.
Okay, well, maybe now would be a good time to unmute everybody if they're not already done so. If anybody has any questions, and I'll stop the presentation and we'll have the cameras on again. If that's I'll stop sharing if that suits people. It's up to yourselves. What do you want to do? Anybody got any questions? Anybody got any pressing issues? No such thing as a steady question. As I said, believe me, we'll have heard them all before anyway.
Hi everyone, it's Lenny here. Question on clothing. So I've done a couple of track days a long time ago, and I think Mondello are looking for long sleeves. Is that still the case?
Yeah, that's no problem. Short sleeves, okay, yeah.
Short sleeves, okay, okay. Great, yeah. Thanks.
No problem, and welcome back.
Is there anything else we need to bring with us on the day?
Well, the cafe is open, but you might want to bring water because you don't want to. I mean, it's a long day. Cafe's open, you can get food. You might want some water. Your water is probably less expensive than the cafe's water, for example. But you know, if you've got a you know, if you're changing tire pressures, the tire pressure gauge is good. I mean, there'll be some you can borrow. A tire, you know, pump, the electric pump to put air in your tires if before you drive home if you've let air out. What else, John?
Obviously a helmet, lads, very important.
Yes, of course.
That's a must-have. I see now that I have come back and stopped the presentation. I can see that Stuart and Aidan have hung on the call as well. Thanks, guys. Aidan, have you anything you'd like to add to what you were saying, given that you're a very experienced man and we have a lot of newcomers here that we're talking to this evening? Have you anything you'd like to add to what we were saying?
No, I'm highly impressed. Your presentation was excellent. Everything you covered is fantastic. It's distinctive how much you've moved it on from the last time I was involved. You've done an excellent job. And certainly compared to the briefings that you normally get from the likes of Mondello people themselves, your presentation is absolutely excellent and highly professional. And if I was a beginner again, I would feel so much more confident going out onto a circuit having seen what you've said. The only thing I would say in some of the questions that were asked, particularly the one about getting back on the throttle and all the rest, I would maybe, and you did touch on it, I would maybe emphasize a bit more the aspect with regard to weight transfer and balance of the car. That's key to it in the context of how you feel the car is and when you can get back on the throttle. And it'll differ from one car to another and from how a person drives that car. That's all I'd say.
Right. Thanks, Aidan. And this what you're seeing today is the collective work of quite a few. I'm just the one that speaks it through, but it's the collective work of quite a few, and some of it is born as well of our experiences in the US when we went over to see their track program and learn from all of the mistakes that they've made many years ago when they were putting this together. So we're getting the cumulative benefit of all of that. So thank you for your kind comments. Much appreciated by the team to put it together.
Well done.
So anybody else? Chris, you might like to stop recording at this point in time.
Okay,
And that
we can then talk about you.
That might encourage people